Good morning, Endeavour. After my technical difficulties yesterday, cross fingers, I'm here to read you our next chapter of The Explorer. Now, it's going to be in two parts. It's quite a long chapter, and we learn a lot about this man that the children have met in our chapter today. I hope you've all had a great weekend. I'm loving seeing all your VE pictures. Keep sending them to me, and at the end of the day today, when I've done everything that I need to do, I'll put them in a folder on Dojo. Then you can all have a look at how each of them has celebrated that special occasion at the weekend. Right. Get yourselves comfortable. I was going to say pull up your cornflakes, but it's far too late for that now, isn't it? So, here we go. Extract 1 of our chapter called The Explorer. The Explorer returned as they were roasting the caracara, squatting outside their stone room with meat on sticks. He held a cluster of mangoes balanced along one arm and a gourd of water in the other hand. They didn't hear him until he was very close. Con jumped and dropped her hunk of bird in the ashes. The Explorer didn't look any of them in the eye. "You're still growing," he said gruffly, "especially the small one." It occurred to me the bird might not be enough. He flushed as he set down the gourd next to the fire and dropped the mangoes in Max's lap and turned on his heel. Fred jumped to his feet. "Please, just a minute. We wanted to ask, what is this place? Do other people know about it? Do you live here alone?" "Why? You hoping to throw a garden party?" I meant, do other people ever come?" "Sometimes people pass by this place, yes." The Explorer squatted down and took Max's meat, which had caught fire, out of his hand and shook it until it went out, and he balanced the tips in the flames. "None of them stay here long. Some are travelling long distances. Tribespeople, people whose ancestors lived here. They usually stay a few days." He twisted the chunk of bird in the tips of the flames. Juice dripped from it onto the fire. "But yes," he said, "in short, people do come." Con and Lila exchanged delighted glances. Backer, who was unusually full of energy for a sloth, waved one claw in the air. "Would they help us?" asked Lila. "Could they take us with them to Manus?" "They might, very possibly. It depends on the people." "How often do they come?" asked Fred. Every few years." He blew on the meat and handed it to Max. "It's ready." Fred saw Lila and Con sag. They looked at each other a little more tired, a little older. "Years," said Lila. "Our parents can't wait for us that long." "No, I imagine not," said the Explorer. "But in that case," began Con, "couldn't you—" And she stopped as the vulture flapped out from behind a stone pillar and came to rest by the man's knee, eyeing the meat. The bird ruffled its wings at her and cawed. Con held her food close to her chest. Lila took up her words. "Could you help us get home?" The Explorer gave them an appraising, sharp-edged look. "Perhaps." "Perhaps," said Lila. "I could point you towards Manius. It's a month's walk or a week and a half by canoe. I could give you some provisions and a map. I might come a short way with you. I'll have to see." Lila's eyes lit up. "That would be absolutely wonder—" But, said Fred, and he held his breath. "You will have to swear never to speak about this place. Never to tell them that you saw the city in the jungle. More than swear, you'll have to prove that you won't." "What?" Fred stared at the Explorer and then past him, across a stone landscape sprawling green and yellow and gold away into the jungle. "Never tell about all this?" "Why?" "Or about me. Ever. All of you, including the little one." Fred searched the Explorer's face for evidence he might be joking. "But my father will ask where I was." Fred had already imagined the conversation they would have, how he would draw his father the layout of the city, how he would pace out the distance of the city square and memorise the measurements. His father would squeeze his shoulder and tell him he'd done something remarkable. He'd imagined his father telephoning his friend from Oxford who worked at Times. He'd imagined his father's voice. "Tim, listen, my son has done something extraordinary." The man was watching him and his face was not sympathetic. "It's very likely you will have to lie to your father." But no, the whole point is that explorers tell people about what they found. That is what explorers do." "Exactly so, and I'm not an explorer. I'm a man who happens to be here." "But people have been talking about this place for hundreds of years," said Fred. "You have to let everyone know that they weren't just stupid old men with mad theories. They were right." "Why do I?" "Because if this place does exist, it means they weren't fools. It means they were heroes." It meant, though Fred didn't say it, that he wasn't foolish, not mad to dream of being an explorer himself. "Heroes don't exist," Boy, they're inventions made of newsprint and quotable lines and photogenic moustaches. Huh. He grunted in disgust. Can't bear moustaches myself. Grotesquery mouth eyebrows, I thought. It's not true. Men have died for this. They've died wanting to prove that this world existed. People have died of many things. It's not difficult to die. But you're wrong. The world deserves to know. Fred felt his forehead burning and he knew he must be turning red. But if they told his name and Lila and Con and Max's, they would be part of history. Their names would be included in the great list of discoveries. As if he'd read his thought, the explorer curled his lip. And you perhaps wish to be one to tell them, do you? Fred's head jerked back as if the man had flicked boiling water in his face. It's not that. The explorer blinked a slow, contemptuous blink. Isn't it? Fred clenched one fist. It'd be selfish not to tell, would it? For the first time, Fred realised the others weren't joining in. Con sat looking at her hands, Lila was stroking back her with an unusual intensity, and Max was sucking his wrist, his mouth turned down at the corners. Fred, said Lila. Her voice was quiet and she didn't look at him. We need to go home. Con moved closer to him and whispered hotly in his ear. You're being ridiculous. Just promise whatever he wants and get us out of here. No! Fred edged away from her. Con's whisper became a hiss. We can still tell everyone when we get home. How's he going to know? He's hardly going to get a newspaper out here. No, said Fred out loud. I am not promising anything. The explorer rose, lit red by the flames of the fire. The light shone on the scars in the crook of his elbow and on his knuckles. I have asked you to perform an easy task. To keep your mouth shut. Are you refusing? No, said Con. We'll do whatever we want. Fred, for goodness sake, just say you will. You can't keep it a secret, said Fred. It's not your secret to keep. Look, said Con to the explorer, he might not promise, but we will. Can't you take us at least? He can stay here for all I care. But the explorer's face was going red at the neck and white around his nose and mouth, and his whole face was cross-hatched with anger. You, he glared at Fred, are a fame-hungry, thin-brained ignoramus, and you, he glared at Con, would apparently happily desert your friend. You disgust me, the lot of you. He's not my friend, not now. Quiet! Keeping his temper did not seem to be the explorer's speciality. His voice rose to a roar. I see no reason to help any of you. Why should I? Good God, if children had a use, we surely would have discovered it by now. And he turned away and he shoved his fists into his pockets and drew something out. I'd forgotten I brought you this. I had not expected your response to my request. You've done nothing to deserve it. Max let out a mew and curled up his knees. The explorer dropped the thing on the ground and strode into the dark. He reached the wall they'd fallen down and began to climb it fast, using both arms and only one leg, the other swinging loosely at the side. Fred, said Con, you're completely unfair and you're welcome to die here yourself, but you've no right to ruin it for the rest of us. Max began to sniff and hiccup with the beginnings of tears. I'll join you in a moment. Part 2.